I want to give you my Georgia Bulldogs record prediction for 2025 and discuss the reigning SEC champions. Can they get back to that point? Can they win a playoff game this year as they won the SEC, laid an egg in that Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame, where I thought they were winning the line of scrimmage. I thought that at points they looked like the better team, but then Notre Dame did two things they were good at: winning the turnover battle and being explosive on special teams with their underrated athleticism. And that ultimately took the game away, took it out of Georgia's hands. And with the limitations at quarterback and the injuries, they just couldn't do much once they were down by 2 scores. But Georgia went 11-3, 6-2 last year, played maybe the toughest schedule in college football history. And they won the SEC with all those injuries and all those limitations, and Carson Beck having a really questionable year, and a year that I think wasn't foreseen, a year that many didn't expect. Many, including myself, expected him to be a Heisman caliber quarterback, or at least a Heisman contender caliber quarterback, top 10, top 5. He finished top 10 in QBR, but that's because the schedule he played against and the fact that he is talented. There were many points of the year where he was not even playing as a top 25 quarterback. Before we move on and talk more about 2025, Georgia, not just reflecting on 2024, I want to give this awesome stat. I keep saying it, but it's awesome, so I feel like it's worthy of repetition. There were 3 games last year where Carson Beck threw 3 interceptions, and Georgia won 2 of them by double digits. That was Florida neutral field, that was Texas in Austin, and one of them against Alabama on the road, they lost by 1 score. Before we resume this segment, please take a few seconds of your time to make sure you have liked the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and for any team podcasts and playlists linked in the description, and also comment your thoughts down below in the comment section and join my Discord server via the description. All of those things I just asked you to do are completely free, and they sign you up for things related to my channel, or they don't sign you up for anything. No cost to you, and all the benefit to you because we release daily college football content here on College Football with Sam. If you want to support the channel monetarily, sign up for a YouTube membership or check any other links in the description for my merchandise store and Patreon. It's just insane coaching, and that's, I think, where I can only start off a Georgia Bulldogs record prediction video, is talking about how I think Kirby Smart is the best head coach in America. I think Georgia's staff is a huge plus. It's a top 3 staff in America, and it may not be number 3 or number 2, especially if you're going to give a lot of weight to the head coach. And you should give more weight to the head coach than the coordinators or any other assistant. Staff is an area I lean very positively with Georgia. I've heard people talk about how, oh, this is a put up or shut up year with Kirby. It doesn't make sense. They won the SEC. They played a super tough schedule. If they beat Notre Dame, who's to say they wouldn't have found a way to beat Penn State? And then with the talent they have and some more time for their players, I mean, as crazy as it sounds, to maybe get a little bit healthy during the playoff, maybe they could have completed the comeback against Ohio State that Notre Dame failed to do. And Notre Dame almost did that. The point being, they were just on the wrong side of that Sugar Bowl game. They were on the wrong side of the close wins phenomena. Notre Dame won that game close. They won the Penn State game close. They won some more games in the regular season close. They were good at that. Georgia was not exactly good at that. They did it against Georgia Tech. They pulled away from Tennessee late, but they did lose to Alabama competitively, and they may have lost to Florida competitively if DJ Lagway didn't have to scramble around for his life. So it was a very up and down year for Georgia, but I love what they bring back and also what is stepping up for them. I'm not worried about Gunnar Stockton. I'll make a video about that, so you should hit the notification bell, as I've already told you probably by now in my subscribe segment. But I'm not worried about him. I have him on my All-SEC team. I have Nate Frazier and incoming transfer Josh McCray on my All-SEC team at running back. And my all-conference teams are larger than most, but only good players are still represented just because there are so many, especially in super conferences. You have more teams, especially in the SEC, where you added 2 blue bloods. You're going to have a plethora more good players than you did prior, and the SEC had just mountains of good players beforehand. I have Drew Bobo, Micah Morris, Daniel Calhoun, Monroe Freeling, and Ernest Green III, all projected starters on the O-line representing Georgia on my all-SEC teams at center, guard, and tackle. I have 4 Georgia wide receivers on my SEC teams. Again, larger than most, but Zachariah Branch, Dylan Bell, Colbie Young, and Noah Thomas, I think, will be Georgia's deepest wide receiver room in several years. I like Oscar Delpin, Loskin Lucky at tight end, Christen Miller, Jordan Hall, Xavier McLeod at D tackle. They're on my all-SEC team. I think Christen Miller will be the best D tackle in the SEC. Gabe Harris, Elo Madozi, and Joseph Jonah Onyanwe, I have them at edge. Raylen Wilson, CJ Allen, and Chris Cole I have represented at linebacker. KJ Bolden and Jonah Laguero at safety, and Dalen Everett at corner. And then Georgia has the best punter and best kicker in the SEC in Peyton Woodring and Brett Thorson. Lethal special teams unit, lethal defense, lethal line of scrimmage play if the recruiting and development that we've seen previously from Georgia pans out. The questions are quarterback and defensive back, and I would say running back a little bit too. I lean positive at running back, very positive. Lean negative at quarterback in the sense that I don't think he'll be Carson Beck or Stetson Bennett, and that's been the standard at Georgia at quarterback recently, is top 10 in QBR, a top 15 quarterback overall for the most part, and I don't think that Stockton will be that. But I don't think he'll be this disaster either, as some, I believe, think. When looking at this schedule here, Georgia's minus 265 odds to reach the playoff, plus 290 to win the SEC. Marshall in week 1, Austin Peay week 2, at Tennessee week 3, get a bye in week 4, and off that bye they host Alabama in week 5. Week 6 they play Kentucky at home. 7 they travel to Auburn. 8 they play Ole Miss at home. They get a bye week 9 before hosting Florida. Well, not hosting, but neutral field against Florida. Week 10 at Mississippi State. Week 11 hosting Texas. Week 12, that'll be a really exciting game and definitely at night. Week 3 they play Charlotte, and they play Georgia Tech, also neutral field, in week 14. I think that there's a world maybe where they go 12-0, the schedule's just tough enough. There are enough, tough road games, tough home games to where I think that 11-1 is the realistic ceiling, and 8-4 is their floor, and that's realistic with all they lose, the amount of close games they won last year, and the fact that, again, it's a tough schedule, and even the best recruiting programs sometimes bust on entire classes or bust at certain points or just caught with their pants down. Georgia loses player after player after player every year. I mean, last year was the first year in a while they had over 60% returning production. So on one hand, they could totally reload, but some things could also bite them in the butt. I think that they have the 6th toughest SEC schedule. 6th toughest, only looking at conference games, so not factoring in Georgia Tech, Charlotte, Austin Peay, or Marshall. Key games for them are Alabama at home, Florida neutral field, Texas at home, and Georgia Tech. Technically road game in a sense, but it's neutral field in terms of location. I think that them getting all of their biggest games from my standpoint, either neutral field or at home, outside of maybe Auburn on the road. With Tennessee, it's early enough, and Tennessee loses enough to where I think, hint, hint, Georgia should win comfortably there. That helps Georgia out a lot to have those games in favorable locations. They bring back 46% of their production, with a S&P Plus rating of a 26.4, which is 5th in the preseason per Bill Connolly. My prediction for Georgia is 11-2, 7-1 in SEC play. I think they're going to be tied for first in the SEC, and they will win the SEC. They will win the SEC over Texas. So they'll either go 1-1 against Texas, or I think more likely 2-0 against Texas. Texas matches up better with Georgia than they did last season, but they have to travel to Sanford, and I love Kirby Smart over Steve Sarkisian in the head coaching chess matchup. Absolutely love that. Georgia as the SEC champions would definitely get a first-round bye with 11 wins, playing that schedule, winning the SEC. It would definitely, certainly get a first-round bye. And I think that people, and this is a tangent I don't want to spend more than a few seconds on, the reason the teams that received the bye last year went 0-4 was because all the teams that received a bye were either worse than their opponent or of similar caliber. Georgia was the only one of similar caliber to their opponent. Them and Notre Dame, I think, were very similar last year in terms of overall quality of team. Notre Dame was more consistent, but Georgia, with the talent and the coaching, I think had a higher ceiling, but also a much lower floor. Ohio State was better than Oregon, and then Texas and Penn State were obviously better than Arizona State and Boise State, respectively. So I think with this new format where the highest ranked teams get a bye, I think you're going to see that narrative of, oh, the bye is actually a disadvantage. I think that will just become neutral. The bye could be a disadvantage for teams, but I think for a staff like Georgia's, it would be an advantage. Now I want to talk about some more specific predictions that I have for Georgia. Some answers and giving more details about how I think the season will play out. So my mild prediction, which is just an easy one, a layup. We're using a Scoville scale here. I'm also going to give a medium, hot, scorching, and hellfire prediction, which is my hottest one. Georgia reaches the CFP for the 5th time under Kirby Smart. I mean, they're minus 290 odds to do so. I think it's pretty easy to say that. And then my medium prediction is after a historically bad season running the football, Georgia will field the top 50 run offense. It's a little bit hotter only because of how bad the ground game was last year. They lose Trevor Etienne. Frazier has some questions. McCray does as well. And they lose a lot in the O-line. So they have questions everywhere in terms of being a competent rushing offense. But I think they're going to break through and do well there. My hot prediction: the Bulldogs win the SEC for the 2nd year in a row and for the 4th time overall under Kirby Smart. I think that their only real competitor, from my standpoint, or maybe competitors plural, is Texas, and depending on if Alabama proves me wrong with their O-line and staff, it would be Alabama. But those are the only two, and they host both of them regular season, and Alabama has a lot of landmine games. Texas has a few, and Georgia has a mental edge over Texas. Alabama also has a mental edge over Georgia, by the way, just to be fair in mentioning that. But what Georgia did to Texas last year was crazy, because Texas in power ratings was an equivalent team or a better team, and Georgia was physically pounding them. It was Texas's outside advantage that kept them in the game, in the SEC championship game, and within more than 3 touchdowns at home in Austin. So I think that Georgia has an advantage and just good odds to win the SEC again. But it's a hot prediction because there's a lot of competition and they're playing a tough schedule. My scorching prediction number 4, is that Georgia plays in the national championship, and therefore they improve as an overall team from 2024. Not by a lot, but slightly. And I think most of that will be in relationship to their floor. I don't think you'll see a meltdown like what happened against Notre Dame. I don't think you'll see a near loss to a 6-6, 7-5 caliber team like they had against Georgia Tech, although I know that's a rivalry. I just think that when they lose, it will be close, or it will be to good teams, not at home either. I think their home game win streak, that should have been a prediction I put in here, is that I think their win streak at home continues. I don't have them losing a home game they haven't lost a game at home since 2019, so they'll extend that streak for another year into 2026. And then my hellfire prediction is that Gunnar Stockton will be a top 25 quarterback. Not top 10, but top 25, at least in terms of the stats, the QBR, the efficiency. I think the receivers are good enough, the O-line's good enough, tight end is and running back is, to where he'll put up some good numbers, he won't make a ton of mistakes, and he'll just be a good QB. I don't think he'll be Bennett in 21 or 22 good. I don't think he'll be Carson Beck 23 good. But I think he'll be a lot like Carson Beck last year as an overall player. Higher floor, not as many bonehead decisions or mistakes, but he also won't have that wow ceiling that Beck has showcased at multiple points. I think that Georgia is underestimated. They're one of the most underestimated and underrated teams in college football right now. I genuinely believe that. I think that Georgia is going to have a great 2025 campaign. I'm excited to watch the Bulldogs under Kirby Smart. Don't underestimate them. I'm putting this as a reminder on my phone for the 2025 season. Don't underestimate Georgia. It will be your peril. You will only get hurt underestimating the Bulldogs. Thank you for watching College Football with Sam. Make sure that you've liked the video, subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell for the channel and team playlists and podcasts in the description, joined the free Discord server where we talk college football 24/7, and have commented your thoughts down below. Check out the description for any ways you can support the channel monetarily. Everything else I've asked you to do is completely free, and your support means the world to me. We're trying to become the next big thing on college football YouTube. 6-figure subscribers, maybe 1 million one day. I think we can do that. And also check out any videos or playlists, anything in these columns right here, where there will be videos and playlists. Yeah, you get the point. Have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next one.